Good evening, everyone, or good morning, whatever time of day it is you happen to be taking in the show. This is another episode of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. And while Mike is hopefully going to come back to us soon, me and Matt are going to try to keep the train rolling as sporadically as we can. And so I'm Stead, and we are going to be chatting about, some limited topics tonight. We're trying to kind of streamline things a bit here to keep it on topics that not only would be hopefully a bit more pertaining to what our listeners want, but also things that we just happen to know a little bit more about. And so we're going to try to keep the show on that path. So I'm Stead again, and it's good to hopefully have all of you listeners available. And I'm joined by I would say my newest favorite person to speak with on the show since we've been doing this. Professor Matt, how you doing, my friend?
We're doing well, Stead. We're doing well.
Well, we got a lot to talk about. It's been a while since we've been on, but I think it's good to kind of let some things kind of
hmm
churn and let some drama happen, especially at this particular point in the year where you have your tight fixtures that occurred over the winter holidays and things are starting to spread out and you're starting to see how the seasons are going to end. And we have a couple of things that I think are starting to take their shape. So I think we go ahead and start in the Premier League, where it appears that the real questions are going to be who's going to get relegated and who are going to get those last spots in Europe. So but let's go ahead and start. We're going to start with the inevitable title winners. It looks like this is a done deal. Liverpool is going to win the 2024-2025 Premier League. They're up by 15 over the second place team. And it seems like Liverpool can only win the Premier League when they win it by a large, large, large margin. So, Professor Matt, since these are
Yeah,
your boys, man, jump right on
and
in.
when we get booted out of the Champions League in the round of 16, uh, that seems to be the trend. The last time I was on with you, and I think the last time I did the Liverpool specific episode, I was still we are the favorites. I wasn't coming out and saying we're going to win this league. And a big reason for that was we had that run of fixtures where it was like, okay, if we can get 10 points out of a possible 12, I'm feeling really good. If we drop, if we even get two draws and Arsenal run their side of things, then all of a sudden the end of the season starts looking a little bit different. Uh we got our 10 points. You guys dropped points to West Ham, to Man
Man
United,
United.
and
Hmm.
Forest. Which actually, it's funny. I think the Forest match was the match you guys played the best.
Hmm.
It's just you created like three chances.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, we are going to win this league,
Hmm.
and I I will be the first to say I was here before the season started. I said top four, maybe we win one of the two domestic cups. I I had third place was the absolute highest
Hmm.
because we signed a Georgian goalkeeper who I think is going to be really good, but he
Hmm.
hasn't shown up yet. He's still in Spain.
Hmm.
They claim we signed Federico Chiesa. I have seen no visual evidence of that. But and that's it. I mean, who thought that effectively the same side that didn't have enough last year could wind up winning the league and winning it this comfortably?
Hmm.
Now, I know Arsenal, it's the injuries, and I, injuries are not an excuse, but they are context. This is what I
Hmm.
was saying last season when
Yeah.
we had the same thing. With Arsenal, I feel sorry for you guys in so much that this was 2020, 2021 for us.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
just the amount of injuries, it's the injuries all came at once and in the same
Hmm.
area of the pitch.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
you guys have been playing a box to box midfielder as your number nine
Right.
this month. And
Right.
that's just not that's bad.
Right.
Let's just yeah.
It is.
And it looks no one really could predict City's drop off. Although it's funny if you revisit our conversations earlier in the season or before the season, all the things we potentially highlighted that if this goes wrong, they can have problems. All of them happen to happen. Literally. It's like,
Yep.
Pep gets too cute and, four center backs don't really make a good defense.
Mm-hmm.
Actually need
Mm-hmm.
specialist fullbacks.
Right.
So if Rodri gets hurt,
Right. Gets hurt.
not
If the
not replacing Julian Alvarez.
right.
Uh
And De Bruyne is getting old.
yeah, and
Yeah. And that was another thing we brought up.
not having an in-house De Bruyne replacement.
Right. Yeah. It's we often I have spoke ad nauseum about Arsenal's problems with the physio department. But this season, I really just feel like these are just players that just happen to get hurt. I really don't see like a trend here. And yeah, it's frustrating to have this occur. But you're also the issue still is the fact that this team has 10 draws. 10. And you know, you're not going to be a championship team with 10 draws unless you just
No.
don't lose a game. You can't lose any games if you're going to do that. And it's unfortunate, but I think the fact that we can't. I don't understand why Mohamed Salah's season is not everywhere. I don't understand why it's not everywhere. It should be everywhere. It should be the most talked about thing in the Premier League is the season that he's having. And we're spending way too much time talking about the woes of Manchester City and why Arsenal can't get over the hump. But you're playing against a guy who has 44 goal or assists in just the Premier League. I
Mhm.
mean, that is unbelievable. He's 3 assists away from being 27, from being 2020. And when you have a guy who's having a magical season like that, it's hard to overcome those types of things when your team is having a misstep here, a misstep there. The glaring signing that you didn't make over the summer is starting to show up. It's understandable. Look, and also 55 points at this point in the year, no matter, it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And Arsenal has only won 2 of their last 5 in the league.
And it's funny you bring up the points total because, you hear a lot of people be like, oh, well, Liverpool got lucky this year because
Yeah.
if you look at our points total as at this point in the season, look, we have more points at this point than your Invincibles did.
Mm-hmm.
There's only been
Right.
in Premier League history, I think it was 10 or 11 teams
Mm-hmm.
that had a greater point total,
Mm-hmm.
three of which incidentally were Jurgen Klopp Liverpool.
Right. That
Uh
yeah.
so which is saying a lot. It's, it's Salah having an all-time season.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I did not know who our bald Dutch Blofeld impersonator of a manager was this time last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he has done, outstanding work, particularly, taking players who like Ryan Gravenberch, who looked lost last season, and
Mm-hmm.
finding them, identifying a role for them. I brought up Jurgen Klopp, and I'll just leave it like this. This league title is a testament to Slot and what he's done. But I think this league title does also sort of enhance Jurgen Klopp's legacy
Mm-hmm.
because unlike United when Ferguson dipped and that was an old team,
Mm-hmm.
probably needed a reboot 2 years beforehand,
Right.
or just the weird kind of the weird unbalanced squad that Arsene Wenger left at Arsenal.
Yes.
The foundation that this guy walked into was outstanding.
Right. Right.
And again, you don't want to go all Shankly Paisley. But one of the reasons why Liverpool was as dominant as it was in the 70s was the work that Bill Shankly put in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm. And Klopp even made mention of that he didn't want to leave the next manager with this basically this mess that he has to clean up.
Hmm.
And you're seeing how other clubs who have had any sort of a successful manager, how that's happened time and time again. So they load up for their last run, and that last run, whether it's successful or not, it's going to lead to a decimated squad. And the fact that Klopp even said, "I'm going to leave him with a side that I know can compete for trophies for the foreseeable future and really get him off on a good run," is really admirable and wise
Yes,
because it because as you said, it adds another element to the legacy of Klopp. Because people can often say, well, he only won one Champions League and he only won one Premier League title, but he also had some of the best seasons that of a side that didn't win because he had to go against oil money. So
exactly.
there's
Oil money
yeah,
and Pep
so
Guardiola.
and Pep
And
Guardiola,
look,
yeah.
he's even come out and said, look, I'll be in town for the parade. I'm
Mm.
not getting on no goddamn bus.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to be there. And I think he really should because
Yeah.
his fingerprints are very
Are
much on
all
this.
over the team.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. They're all over the team. So I say congrats to Liverpool though because they really they kind of did this season the right way. They played very 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 organized team ball. They were not winning based on other teams' mistakes. They were just better. They just looked better organized. They looked like a unit. They looked like a team that just not only could they handle some level of adversity, they never really put themselves in a position of adversity very often. And if they
yeah,
did, they bounced out of it very quickly. You go up 1-0, they're probably going to be 1-1 within the next 6 to 12 minutes. And so that's really a testament to that squad. So I definitely have enjoyed watching it from the standpoint of a football fan. Now it's a shame that, I can say what I want about, well, Arsenal might finish second or whatever, but Arsenal just hasn't played well enough to really garner that. The fact that, excuse me, Forest games and West Ham games are looking like very even matchups just lets you know that the team lacked depth.
hmm,
They've lacked depth from the beginning. All of my Arsenal fans on my chat have been saying how much they've lacked depth. They're getting a little, you know, sound like a little bit too much like an unrealistic fan sometimes, but it's just they're just not quite there yet. So the hope for Arsenal now is simply that you're getting healthy right before the first leg of the quarterfinals starts. You're going to get healthy again. Yeah, I think actually Bukayo Saka's been healthy, but I think it was wise for him to just take some time away
yeah.
because I think if he came back right when he was healthy, he would have turned around and gotten injured right over again.
Well, and I hope also too that was partially his decision because
Yeah,
I quite like your manager.
I do too.
But
I do too. And it'll be
I
folly if they let him if they let him go to like Barcelona or something. That is just the worst thing they can do because then you're going to be right back challenging for the Europa League spot going in fifth again. I guarantee that's going to happen.
I've heard this. I read today that you know Conti's name has been thrown out there as a possible successor, and I was like, that didn't work the first. That worked when he was employed for 18 months by a Russian oligarch, and that's
Hmm. Right.
his brand of football doesn't translate to the English game.
No.
Stay in Italy, dude.
Hmm.
But I quite like him, but I do reserve the right to criticize him.
Hmm.
Has this tendency. I'm gonna play my best starting 11.
All.
Play them
Yeah.
like he, his substitutions don't always make sense.
No, they don't.
Usually come very late,
Hmm.
and with a young player like Saka, you have to rest him. You have
You
to
have to
give him.
manage his
Yeah,
minutes. Yeah. And the fact that they were putting Saka in on Carabao Cup games, stuff like that. You're just going like, what are you doing? You have to give this kid a break. And we've been hollering about it forever. You got to give him a break. And they just didn't. And you brought in Raheem Sterling and you didn't let Raheem really, I'm not saying Raheem would have been a world beater or anything like that, but you brought him in as someone who could provide that type of relief for Saka and you didn't actually do it. Now, whether he wasn't showing it in training or whatever his reasons were, you still have to, you have to, especially early in the season when you're alive in four cups.
yeah,
It gets easier as the season progresses because you might get knocked out of this, you might get knocked out of that. you saw they were out their first FA Cup match, they were done. So there's just this there's this I don't want to say lack of trust in some of the signings that he has, but there needs to be something where the pressure to play all your best players all the time is going away, because you're seeing now he's now starting to play these younger kids, but they're getting hurt because they're playing week in and week out now.
Mhm.
So if he was able to kind of incorporate them in a more timely fashion, to kind of let them play, and then if you wanted to play your best guys, sub them in, but I wouldn't even sub them in. Just let them get those types of minutes for those games, because you got knocked out anyway.
That's what the early rounds of the domestic
That's
cups
what
are
they're
for.
for. That's what they're for.
It's giving the academy kids a run out and seeing
Yeah,
who sticks and who doesn't.
right. And if you get knocked out of the I keep calling it the Carling Cup, from all those years ago.
I I have messed that up this week alone about 5 or 6 times. And that those of you who are watching, this gives you a sense of how old me instead are. That is my frame of reference.
Yep, yep, yep. So it is what it is. But it's you, I think that the biggest mistake they made was not trying to win the final that's going to be tonight. Because I said, if Arsenal don't win a trophy this year, it's a failure. It's a failed season if they don't win a trophy this year, because you've been spending a little bit of money, you have talent, and you didn't get a goal scorer, or you're looking back going, was I don't even remember the kid's name, but Nketiah, was selling him was such a good idea. I
He
don't know.
hasn't lit the world on fire at
No.
Atlas, but I was shocked because when I hear, oh, Arsenal doesn't have, a striker, and it's like, well, no, they have two, but they're awfully similar.
Yeah.
And that was even before the injuries. That was what I
Hmm.
was saying in the summer. I'm like, where's the kind of out and out number nine? Because
Right.
you have you effectively have two false nines, one a little silkier, one more, you know, physical.
Right.
Ultimately, they're not really strikers. And look, he's
Mm-mm.
been injured most of the season, so I can't say anything. I was saying throughout the summer, Fulkrug, 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 because
Hmm.
okay, let's say you want to start Havertz, you could do what the German national team did and bring Fulkrug on and move Havertz
Hmm.
back and have him play right behind the big striker.
Right. Right.
No, you'd have options.
And Havertz has played well.
Yeah,
He's played
yeah.
well. I mean, look, Chelsea Mike loves to act like we burn all this money, but I'm looking at it going, this wasn't a bad deal.
It looks a lot better
It
than Mason Mount to United. At least Havertz
At
plays.
least Havertz plays, yeah. And
The
so
thing is, he's just never gonna be. He'll be at best like maybe a 15 goal season.
right, right, which is what you would need out of a guy who's your false nine. It's not
Yes.
what you need out of your, and Gabriel Jesus, who he's, I'm hard pressed to criticize him. It's
I
not his fault that his body can't do what his mind wants it to do.
that's a big part
And
of it.
yeah, and you
And
saw he had just come back and he had 7 goals like that. And we're like in all competitions, but we're like, okay, he's gearing up again. And the whole time I'm just holding my breath. And so when he tore his ACL, or I think it's his ACL or his Achilles, I was kind of like, well, that's unfortunately his career is on the back end, and he's what? Well, I'm looking 27.
late 20s, I think.
Yeah,
But
27. He's about to
he
be
played a
28. He should be in
lot of
his
football.
prime.
He played a lot of football in Brazil,
Yeah.
and he. We think of those early Pep City teams, and we think Aguero,
Hmm.
and it's true. Aguero played a lot, but Jesus got a lot of minutes. Like there was a heavy rotation, even in
Absolutely.
bigger games, and in
Yeah.
smaller games, they were just Jesus games.
Yeah. 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 But he just can't stay healthy. It's almost like he just needs to just go back to Brazil and sit in the beach for a year and just don't do anything. Let your body just heal, because you can't deny the man's, when he's healthy and he's on. I mean, he is phenomenal, but he just can't stay healthy. And I feel for him, because he was really excited to be part of Arsenal.
Mhm.
He really wanted to be at the club, and it wasn't like he knew he was out at City and he took the best available club that wanted him. He wanted to come to Arsenal. He had a
He
good
was,
relationship with Arteta
I
when
was about to
Arteta
say,
was an assistant there.
he was
Yep.
the first wave of
He
Arteta.
was. He
It
was the
was
first
him
wave of
and
Arteta, and he spoke very,
Zinchenko.
very clearly about how much he was excited to play for Arsenal. He's like, no, this is where I want to be. And he was very open with the media, and he was doing all of this community stuff, and he was just like, no, I am not City, I am Arsenal. And then to have his body fall apart from the age of 25 on is really, really heartbreaking. And I'm not saying that just as an Arsenal fan. I'm saying that as a player who's proven to be someone who is a good guy, team guy, and just wants to win, wants to help his team, and just is unable to do so. So that's it's heartbreaking for him. And it's we have also some players that are just haven't broken through what you think their ceiling should be. They haven't really gotten through. Martinelli has never quite reached it, and he's been good, but he's never really gotten to the point where he can maintain. He'll have a game, and you're like, okay, that's the Martinelli that I know he can be, but it's just a flash here, a flash there, and a flash here. And he's not the healthiest either, but he's not definitely not Gabriel Jesus, but he's been getting nicked up a bit as well. So there's just, the Jury and Timber didn't really work out because he got injured really quick. He's been playing lately now, but that hasn't really been the best thing going either. Kieran Tierney didn't work out. So, it's just been a lot of injury issues with the club that's made them difficult to
And
get over the
even though
hump.
he's largely stayed healthy this season, I think when you watch Thomas Partey, you can see the attrition of all of those injuries. He's
Yeah,
a different guy. He
he
can
is.
still break up play and stuff, but he's not.
If you pay, maybe I'm just seeing things, but I have a thing about watching the way people run. And
Hmm.
that I've been really into that ever since we had Jack Wilshere, because I called it when Jack Wilshere was 18. And I said, if he doesn't change the way he runs, he's going to run his ankles into the ground and he's going to be out. And so Thomas Partey doesn't run the same way he used to. He seems to have a slight difference in the way he is moving around the field, which shows that the injuries have been piling up, and he's really like I feel like he's held together with some thread and some duct tape a little bit. And while he's played admirably, there's just it's just not all there. And it just seems like a lot of the guys on the Arsenal team are shells of what they could be. And it's almost impressive that they're even able to be this competitive. I mean, look, even Ben White still is not right.
Yeah.
He's not. And
And
Tomiyasu,
Tomiyasu, when have we last seen him?
Tomiyasu has not played consistently in over 2 years. And uh during I think in I would say the 2022 1-2 season, he was our best defender.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, dude, where they find this guy? And he's falling apart. So, are you going to see an overhaul of the squad this summer? If Arsenal want to remain competitive and if Arteta remains the coach, you're almost going to have to. You keep your horses, of course. You ride Odegaard, you ride Declan Rice, you ride. Hopefully you can keep Saliba one more season, but I don't know. I don't know. And so, and look, you're looking at losing Gabriel and Saliba possibly this season because they're the best defensive duo in the Premier League. They're the best. And Arsenal's unfortunately is not the club that can keep that type of a duo with their track record of trophies. It's because it's just not there. We have 3 FA Cups and that's about it. And so if they can get past Real Madrid, that's basically what it's going to take to make that team believe that they can actually grow beyond moving forward and not start next season like we started the season, I'd say 2 years ago, where you go, we're probably top four, and that's probably all we're going to get.
And unfortunately, we all know your guys' history against Spanish opposition in Europe.
Yeah, yeah. It's calling it atrocious is giving it a little bit too much credit. I mean, we still hang on to the one game where Thierry Henry scored against Real Madrid to put us through to the final against Barcelona. It's still, or maybe the semifinal. I don't remember the game, but and that was in 2006. So there really is Arsenal in Europe for for a club that is ranked top 10 in the world when it comes to just general popularity, their record in Europe, especially in European finals, is abysmal. It's abysmal. I mean, it's when we got the two Europa League finals, and I'm not sure any of us really were like, we should win, we're better, but I don't see
I
this
still
one
don't
working
understand
out.
how you lost to Chelsea and
I
lost
don't
as
either.
bad as you did in 2018.
That was embarrassing. That was embarrassing. And maybe that's why I like Sunderland because they have the same things when they go to Wembley. They just took them forever to get over the hump. But I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. But it's we'll see. We'll see. I worry that the glory days of early Arsene Wenger, for at least from my time since I've been alive, since I've been actually been able to pay attention to Arsenal, may never ever come back. And that's the scary part because I'm just not sure Arsenal can kiss with the big boys unless, they get bought by some multinational company. And Cronkies are getting paid hand over fist with this club, so they're not gonna sell it. So I don't know. And then the good thing is there's a lot of big time billionaires who love Arsenal, who would love nothing more than to put their money together and take
Well,
over this club.
be careful what you ask for, though, because
Yeah,
I've come on this show and I've said, look, I'm not FSG out, I'm not FSG in either. I'm FSG neutral. I reserve the right to criticize them, but I also reserve the right to, big them up when they do well. But the reason I can never fully be FSG out is, and maybe this is, a benefit of being Central and Eastern European.
yeah,
Instead, it can always be worse.
that's true.
Like I remember our last American owners, Tom Hicks and Mr. Gillette. I mean, the Royal Bank of Scotland owned Liverpool for 20 minutes
Yeah,
because they messed it up that bad. So I always whenever that topic comes up, I'm always like, okay, but who's next?
right. That's true. That's true. And it's also I know my friends hate when I say this, but I always go, let's not forget where we were 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yes.
Let's not forget where we were. And look, excuse me, we also know if you get the right ingredients in the soup is delicious. You just got to get the right ingredients, not the most expensive ingredients.
Hmm.
So there's hope for everybody. And maybe I'll use this as a segue to the bottom of the table because look, Leicester did it, and that was a great team. That was a great team. So hopefully, if they can get their scouting departments, and you can just go find your own version of N'Golo Kante because he almost came to Arsenal, but Arsene Wenger was being Arsene Wenger and didn't want to be outshined at a deal and didn't get him. But let's look at I was looking at a couple of publications and they were talking about the big games that are going to be coming up in the future. And because considering that the title race is essentially over, they highlighted the Arsenal Chelsea game because that could have some implications because Chelsea's fourth right now, and of course they're kind of battling with City and with surprisingly Nottingham Forest, and plug to Uncle Nuno, man. Wait, great season
Yep.
for you, great season. But the bottom of the table seems to also be rounding into shape in a way that I didn't expect. I sorry, I know I think it was G was like Leicester's going down. Like somebody, or maybe it was you. I mean, somebody was like not
I
seeing
think it
them.
was both of us,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah. So I'm now and it they look terrible. They can't get out of their own way. I mean, they
I
right now they're in the worst form in the Premier League.
I was suspicious of them coming up. And I'll freely admit, and Chelsea Mike will be very angry with me. I don't watch a lot of the championship. If it's on, I'll have it on. The promotion playoffs, a lot of fun. But I looked at that squad and I said, this is literally the same team that got relegated a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
unless they make a couple moves during the summer,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this really ends well. And look, I love Jamie Vardy,
Yeah.
but he's
He's got to be 38,
yeah, like
39, and he's been
he's not much younger than I am at this point. Like I'm only a couple years older than him at this point. Kalichi and Nacho never really developed into anything.
no, and that's sad. I think all of
Uh,
us expected more from him.
Wilfred Ndidi is not N'Golo Kante.
No,
Uh, right.
he's
And
not N'Golo Kante's right leg.
no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. And the defense, I mean, look, their best center back is that guy, that Belgian dude who looks like Sideshow Bob, who the only
I,
reason I
I
like
thought it was David Luiz for a while.
yeah, I like the only reason I know who he is he single-handedly gave us 3 points 2 years ago when he scored those two own goals. Like I think it was on Boxing Day or something. So like they've they're they they really haven't been the same club since. And look, I'm not the biggest Yuri Tillemans fan,
Hmm.
but he was a good piece in that midfield.
Hmm.
Uh and when Schmeichel's kid left.
Casper, yeah,
Yeah, because the goalkeeping situation, I mean it's not
that was bad.
it
They really did him
it
dirty,
was
I thought.
bad.
Yeah, they did him dirty. He's, I mean, you could say after Vardy, he's the best player they've ever had.
Oh yeah.
And yeah,
Oh yeah, without a
yeah,
doubt.
yeah. And look, he was what? I think he's what? I think he was mid 30s at the time, 34, 35. That's not old
Early
for a
third because
goalie.
he's up in Scotland with Celtic now.
Oh, he's in Celtic now. I thought
Yeah,
because he went to Nice. He went to France
he
first.
was in he was in France. Now he's up
Hmm.
in Scotland. Yeah, he's doing just fine. I mean, he's not
Yeah,
the player he once was.
right, which is expected, but he's not old for. I mean, I don't think replacing him has done them any favors at all.
No, especially going back to you want to get rid of something. What are you going to replace it with?
Right,
You know,
right,
what's the plan? Like,
right.
I I'm not shocked at that at all. I will say this, and they're not good. I am a little surprised how bad Southampton has been. Like, I saw them going down, but I didn't think they would be, the worst team in the league.
Yeah, they're looking at being one of the worst teams ever. I
Yeah.
mean, they're sitting on 9 points, so they're looking at really being one of. And the funny, this is the so funniest thing about that. I'm sorry to interject here. It's just a funny little anecdote is that they were one of the 6 or 7 teams that were discussing the reformation of the Premier League recently, and um they weren't necessarily invited to be one of the clubs to go to the European Super League, but they were that other team. And now you're looking at them going, this team might get relegated from the championship the way they're looking. And
So
and they've spent money this year. That's what's even worse.
that's the thing. That's why I thought, okay, maybe they can at least like get to safety because they did overhaul the squad that got them relegated.
Mm.
It's kind of crazy. 5 or 6 years is a long. It's ages
It
in
is.
world football
Yeah.
because there was a time when they would whoever was in charge of their scouting department did a great job. Think about all of the guys that my club alone got off of them. Sadio Mane,
Hmm.
Van Dyke,
Van Dyke.
Dejan Lovren,
Yeah.
like, you know,
Look, we got Theo Walcott out of
Bill
there.
Walcott.
They've had some players that
They've
come through
had
that
some
system.
players, and they, under Ralph Hasenhüttl, they played very attractive football.
Hmm.
And once they stopped, bringing in these younger players and developing them, yeah, we may not see them in the Premier League for a while.
For a while. Yeah. And I mean, I really, really, really feel bad for Aaron Ramsdale. I mean,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
because he 2 or 3 years ago, he was on the team of the season for the Premier
I
League
I thought he
as
was
an
going to
Arsenal
be
goalie.
I thought he was going to be England's next great
I did
goalkeeper.
too.
He looked
I did too.
outstanding
He
during that
looked
World
he
Cup.
really did. And you're looking at him going like, this guy has been on, let me look him up real quick. He's been on like multiple clubs that have been relegated. When he was on there, he was on Sheffield when they got relegated,
Yep.
and you're just like, dude. And I think it doesn't, and sadly, is it reflects somewhat poorly on him. But I think the consensus is that this guy just ends up on really bad teams.
Well, and that's part of it. The other part of it is, and that's why he's not at Arsenal anymore, is it's sad when a lot of a guy's issues aren't physical, but they're up here. Because I mean, he was exiled out of Arsenal because he had the goalkeeper equivalent of the yips.
Yeah, he did. And he
Like,
could not he couldn't play the ball out of the back with his feet. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't do it effectively. And look, we were all wondering like, okay, we swore that Raya was simply there to push Ramsdale into being a better goalkeeper. That was the assumption. And then Raya just outplays him from the beginning on a loan deal. And eventually he gets to the point where he's now the starter. And now he's looking like one of the top five goalies in the Premier League. So it's really unfortunate, but I'm hoping because he's still young. And, I'm going to keep rambling because Matt is currently frozen. Oh, there he's back. There you
I'm
go.
back.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
back. You were frozen on my end too.
Okay.
You kept speaking, so
I just kept talking. Yeah. Oh, so, but hopefully, I'm thinking with Ramsdale, he's only 26. So I think it might be beneficial for him to maybe even play a season in the championship. Play a season in the championship, kind of like get out of the Premier League spotlight for a while, relearn what you're already good at, and then pick up some new skills because you won't be under the pressure the same way you were in the championship. And then hopefully progress back into getting on a Premier League squad. And it won't be, I mean, to be funny, I could see him ending up on Spurs, but because I could see him getting to the point where he'd be good enough for a club like that. But he again, he's young. He is young. He's definitely young in goalkeeping years. So if he can somehow get his mind and body under control in the same way, he could be an effective goalkeeper. Because I mean, look, all of us fans, we have a lot of love for the guy. We really do. There's two ex-Arsenal players that are currently playing that we all love. It's Aaron Ramsdale and Emil Smith Rowe. And we pull for them. Like when ESR scores a goal for Fulham, we all celebrate. We did not want him to be sold, even though we understood why he should be sold, but we wanted to keep him. We all love that guy. So hopefully he can bounce back in some way, shape, or form. But it seems like it's going to be Leicester going down. It's going to be Southampton going down, and Ipswich is 6 points clear of Wolves. And I feel like that is. I mean, I'll tell you that this is going to be one of the more boring end of EPL seasons we've had recently.
yeah, the only really compelling storylines are what does Mo's GA tally look at the end of the year? Because this is an historic season. And obviously, we're gonna win the league. I still think your boys finish second
I
because
think we still finish second.
because I
Yeah,
trust them more than I trust the rest of the.
right. Agreed. I trust them more too.
Only real
Um,
compelling storylines is who rounds out the top four
mhm.
because City's still there and they struggle against good teams, but they're still good enough to hammer bad teams.
They pound bad
They
teams. They
pound them.
pound them. Yep.
So like they could wind up doing it on goal difference. I
Hmm.
have no goddamn clue what Chelsea team's going to show up week in to week out.
I say the same thing for Newcastle.
Well, I was just about to say, so and I know you're a big fan of his, and I've always liked him, but I'm gonna step back and say I I misread the tea leaves. Eddie Howe is a really goddamn good manager.
Hmm.
And I thought he was the guy that would get the foundation in place
Hmm.
and then he'd have to go and they'd have to get somebody else
Hmm.
to get them to the next stage. Nah, Eddie Howe is
Yeah.
a problem there. The problem at Newcastle is their starting 11 is brilliant. Once you get to their bench is when the problems start. If they have
Absolutely.
if they have one or two injuries or one or two suspensions, they all of a sudden have
They
the
have problems.
the gap between, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but this is a testament to Eddie Howe, between a Joel Linton and a Joe Willock is significant.
Yeah.
Uh an
I go ahead.
an Isak to a Callum Wilson is significant.
Yeah, well, Callum Wilson is he's hard to he's hard for me to figure out. Um, because every time I think he's kind of like on his way to not being a Premier League forward anymore, he starts to pick it back up and starts to play well again. Um, but I think also Isak is not good for Callum Wilson.
No,
I don't
no,
think
no,
he
no,
is.
no, no,
You know,
no.
sometimes those things work. I feel like I think Callum was expecting to be the guy, and even with Isak there, I think Isak is playing better than anybody expected him to be playing. And you know, what if Isak was on Newcastle? Or I'm sorry, what if Isak was on Manchester City? What if
Or
he was on that
either
squad?
or either of our teams, because
Yeah,
we both could have had him. But at the
absolutely.
time, it was like, I don't know, he's just really fast. I haven't really watched him in Spain, and now it's like,
Right.
yeah, that asking price was turned out to be a bargain.
Yeah, I mean it was 60 million, something like
Yeah,
that. And yeah, they made out
yeah.
pretty good. Because now I ain't gonna lie, we're trying to buy him. Arsenal's been trying to
As
buy
are
him.
as are we,
Yeah,
and
and they're asking 120 million, and people are like, dude, shell it out because the guy's apparently worth it, and you can't deny that he's going to be that kind of a player, and put him on one of the real big clubs. And I think Newcastle, we knew Newcastle was going to have a resurgence with when they were purchased by essentially Saudi Arabia. They're
yeah,
going to have a resurgence, and they have. Um, I can honestly say I was expecting a little more, primarily because of what happened with Manchester City. I was just like follow
well,
the carbon copy, but
but I think they took good notes
that's
and
what I was just
were
about to
like,
say. Yeah,
let's build this, but let's not make the mistakes City.
exactly,
So
exactly,
we don't have 100+ charges levied
right.
at us in
Yeah,
5 or 10 years.
yeah, and City's they're going to have a I agree with you when you said this earlier. They're going to have a transfer ban, and
Yeah,
it's going to be a lengthy transfer ban. And then from there, they're going to have to figure out how to do this the right way because they know that spotlight is going to be on them even more now, even though it's been blatantly obvious from the beginning what they were doing. But I feel like the Premier League, I think because City sort of won enough, the Premier League may have the balls now to really say, okay, you can't do this anymore.
I think
Um,
it's also it's not just England, it's European wide.
European, yeah,
I used to joke when financial fair play first came in that it really only applied to Eastern European teams and teams at the bottom end of the
yeah.
footballing pyramid.
Well,
But
you
then
saw how they wouldn't let Leicester's ownership do the same thing. They were
mm,
like, wait a minute, why can't we? They're doing it, and they were like, well, no, because they tried
but
to throw in a bunch of money in the club and they wouldn't
yep.
let them.
But then, the last few years you see, you know, some of the bigger established Italian teams having to pay the piper
Yeah,
for past sins. And I mean, we joke about Everton. When Everton got those points deductions last year, that's when I was like, maybe something's different because
hmm
5 years ago, the 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 league would have let that slip because
yeah,
it was
yeah,
Everton.
right, yeah, because it was Everton exactly, which was unfortunate that it had to be a club that's really not going to be one that's going to be straining things from the top side that had to happen to them. Like Everton's that team that you always pull for to finish fifth, but to finish to finish fifth, I can say that very easily. But let's pause for a brief intermission, and then we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So we're gonna go ahead since we've been talking about Newcastle and we were previously discussing Liverpool. Let's go ahead and talk about the first cup final that we have this year with the Carabao Cup final.
By the way, I only recently found out that was an energy drink.
Yeah,
I assumed it was a gambling site.
right, right. I thought it was a gas station or something. I was like, I don't know what that is.
My aunt, who I've gotten into the beautiful game, refers to it as the reindeer cup.
Ah, okay, cool. All right, so the Reindeer Cup final sounds good to
Yeah.
me. But we have, Newcastle versus Liverpool at Wembley, and I can honestly say this is the biggest game that Newcastle has had in a very, very long time. And yeah, I think that this, if outside of the games that you got when you would see some club that had battled their way to this final and have a legit shot at winning over the years, and that you saw Birmingham City beat Arsenal. You saw Swansea City win this cup. So this is usually one of those kind of games where hopefully, not usually, but it's nice to see one of those minnows maybe have a chance to win a major trophy. So but we're not seeing that here. But I think because of this resurgence in Newcastle has been relegated twice in the past 15 years or so. I think it's twice. And
Yes.
um, so to see them in a cup final when this is a club in the early days of the Premier League that was one of the dominant clubs in the in the
When
in the
I
in the
first
country.
started following
Hmm.
the league, they were
Hmm.
they were the third wheel.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was Man U, Arsenal, and Newcastle. And
Hmm.
so this is a big one for them though. I think if they can pull this off, that can really be the thing that kind of bumps them up to the next level, which makes the Premier League maybe a little bit more top heavy than it already is. But it's a good thing to have more clubs that are going to be competing year in and year out, because unfortunately you're not seeing that in most places throughout the world, I'd say. So but this is of course near and dear to you. What do you see, and how do you think are Liverpool going to do what they did last year with playing the kids and stealing one?
Well, I don't think we're necessarily going to be playing the kids, and I think some of Arne Slot's substitutions against PSG actually indicate that. I think we're going to go with a pretty strong squad. I'll be honest, I'm feeling a little less confident than I was just a couple days ago because so it appears because by the time that Champions League match ended, I was like, are we going to have defenders to play on Sunday? Uh
Yeah, Trent's out.
Nate was that was precautionary. Uh, he was feeling cramp, and Slot was like, "Get him out, get him out, get him out." Uh, Trent, however, will not be in attendance, and Connor Bradley isn't going to be back until after the international break. Joe Gomez isn't going to be back until the 1st of May at the earliest. So we're looking at either Jarrell Kwanzaa and or Endo playing right back for us.
Wow.
So that evens it out. On the other hand, Anthony Gordon, Scouser, decided to get himself suspended for this match. So that helps and that goes back to what I mean. Like their starting 11 is really good, but once you start removing some of those pieces, it gets a little dicey. And no Botman.
Mm,
So both teams are coming into this with pieces missing.
hmm.
Uh, Newcastle have played us tough.
Yeah.
Both times so far in the league. Uh, I think we get it done because I think, especially after Wednesday, I think there's
Hmm.
more motivation
Hmm.
to do it.
Hmm.
I think we are the better team. I think we're the deeper team.
Hmm.
I don't think it's going to be easy though.
Hmm.
I'm going to say 2-1. I think we do concede a goal.
Yeah.
Isak is gonna play, and he loves a goal against us.
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah, I see 3-2 as well at Liverpool.
okay.
I think I see 3-2 with Alisson really like pulling you guys out of this one. Um he's played very well.
He's reminding us all that he's the best
He's the
goalkeeper in the world.
best goalkeeper in the world. He has
Uh
played phenomenally well. Take what you want about the PSG game. He has played very, very, very well. And so I don't see Liverpool losing two games in a row that are the magnitude of a cup final and and a Champions League round of 16 match. I just don't see them losing two
And
in a row.
it's look, the Carabao, formerly Carling Cup, that is our cup. We've won
Hmm.
this thing 10 times. I think 11 is coming. Just like the FA Cup I associate with your club.
Yeah, and I'm
Right?
glad it's
Right.
your cup now because I was so sick of calling it the Man City Cup. So
Well, but that was recent though. They
that's
were
very recent.
on
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. And it
crazy
was just
run.
a quick, there it was a interval of time very
Yeah.
recently where they just seem to kind of be in the final or win that cup every year. So I'm glad that that's over. But yeah, this has definitely been Liverpool's cup. Yeah, and I agree. Just like kind of FA Cup is kind of is Arsenal's thing. And so yeah, it's going to be hard to bet against Liverpool for this one, and I'm sure Newcastle's probably pissed that that they lost against the PSG in that game. I would be mad. I'm like,
Yeah,
damn it.
no, that exactly.
But
And in a weird way, I'll say this, and this is not me running, propaganda or speak because we know he's leaving for Madrid at the end of May. In a weird way, now obviously, if Bradley or Gomez was healthy, I'd be feeling even a little bit better. Weirdly enough, Wataru Endo at right back might be more defensively solid than Trent Alexander.
yeah,
He's
agreed.
not going to give us anything close going forward,
Hmm.
but I can guarantee you he's at least going to give. We're both academics or educators.
Hmm.
Endo will at least give you a B. He probably
Hmm.
won't give you an A plus, but he will give you a
Right. Yeah, but he'll give you a better score in the areas that we know Trent tends to lack. He'll
lack.
give you a better score
Exactly.
there, which is true, which is true. So yeah, that's primarily why. And I would prefer a 3-2 game just to make it a little bit more fun to watch. But yeah, I see Liverpool winning by a goal, and I do see Liverpool conceding. So but that's going to be on Paramount Plus,
Yep.
and on Sunday noon 30. So I would recommend tuning in, especially unless you want to watch, the late college basketball or something. I would check this out. I think this will be fun to look at. But let's go ahead and shift gears to talk about. Let's go ahead and talk about what's going on in Europe. Champions League. I don't think we need to spend too much time on the PSG Liverpool game, but if you wanted to just briefly give a quick summation of what you saw there, and I'll say a couple things about PSG because you know how much I enjoy beating on
We
them.
we stole the first leg in Paris. We had no business winning that match, and
Hmm.
that is a testament to Allison,
Hmm.
in particular.
Hmm.
It's kind of crazy because watching that match was very much like watching or rewatching the Champions League final from a couple years ago because we battered Donnarumma. We had chances, but he kept, save after save.
Hmm.
Uh, the goal we conceded was sloppy.
Hmm.
I hate penalties, and that is
I do
exactly
too.
the reason why.
I can't stand
Because
him. I
I
can't
like,
stand
and
him.
I want to apologize to Darwin Nunez right now because I think I put the kiss of death on the poor son of a. Because I turned to my wife and I was like, he does have a weirdly good penalty record, and then he did what he did, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh. I'll say this about PSG. I'm not the biggest Luis Enrique fan, never have been, but this is not your older brother's PSG. They have an identity, and they're not simply a dysfunctional collection of guys. Uh, do I think they're going to win this competition? No. That being said, they're in a much better place than they were just like 2, 3 years ago when
Hmm.
they had three of the biggest names in world football as their front three.
Hmm.
Uh, they're a much more disciplined team, and they have some guys who can hurt you. And again, never been the biggest Luis Enrique fan, but hey, Even Dembele doesn't look lost anymore. Who would
Mm-hmm.
have thought, oh, we'll take Dembele and we'll make him a center forward? He's played
Mm-hmm.
the best football of his career. And what have I been saying on this podcast since I was invited on? This Kvaratskhelia kid is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. 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 And
Really
what's funny, because you bring
good.
it about PSG about how they look like a unit now. Because I was gonna say, if you asked me to name 5 players on PSG this season, I wouldn't be able to do it. And
You
this is
probably could, but like two of them, you'd be like, they're a PSG now.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. Because I was just thinking about that when I was watching the highlights, where I was just kind of like, wait a minute, he's on PSG?
Yup.
Oh, oh, they have had an identity change, and they're dominating Liga again, but they're undefeated. They have no losses this season in League, which again, and I'll continue to think that the French league is a farmers league other than PSG until but that's just the way they set up that league and their finances and stuff like that. It's just the way it's going to be. And when you look at the success of their national team, they really have no need to ramp their league up anymore because they still have the most talented pool of players probably in Europe, like they've had for the last 30
Well,
years.
and
So,
they use their domestic league the way that I think a lot more countries that you're not England, you're not Germany, you're not Spain should
mm,
use it. They use
yeah,
it as kind of a finishing school
right,
before they parachute these guys off
right,
to Italy, Germany,
right,
Spain, etc.
exactly. Yep, exactly. So I'm also though I until they prove me wrong, I don't think they're ever going to win this championship. And because they're dominating league on the way they are, but it was I feel like they have finally taken the star goggles off and said we need to really build a squad here, and we need to not be making all these trying to make these splashy moves and just build from within. Let's not forget they got Donnarumma on a free, so you
Well,
know it's that, but that's kind of the way
they
you
had
do.
and they have two really good goalkeepers.
Mm,
They have Donnarumma, and then talk about bargain basement shopping. They're they they did what a lot of clubs in the West should have done. They were paying attention and they were like, this kid Matvey Savanov at
mm-hmm,
FC Krasnodar is really goddamn good. I know Russia is sanctioned, so we can't
mm-hmm,
go get him. But once his contract runs out, let's make him an offer because he's going to want to leave.
yeah,
And if Donnarumma decides to go back to Italy because he's homesick,
mm-hmm,
or you know, we
mm-hmm.
got a guy and a young guy. He's only 24.
Wow.
Uh, who like he could be pretty legit.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, funny I mentioned him. I'm very confused. So Safanov traveled. He was at Anfield the other night. But Arsen Zakarian, who plays for Real Sociedad, couldn't get into England because he's Russian. I'm confused. I'm really confused. So one Russian can get in, another Russian can.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't
yeah.
understand this.
Can't bring in two,
Can't
only
bring
one
in
at a
two
time.
apparently.
Yeah. Probably have something in their suitcase. Yeah, but and the thing about PSG is they, the fact that they got through Liverpool, now they're playing Villa.
Yeah, which is
They're look,
actually one of that might be the most even tie of the quarters.
yeah.
So I
But
don't know who.
we don't know which Villa's going to be there.
I don't know what PSG is going to be there either.
Yeah, yeah,
Much like yourself, do I see them winning this competition? No. Until they prove me otherwise,
yeah.
no.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, Villa on their day is very good.
Villa on the day can beat anybody.
Beat anybody, but
Yep.
when they're bad,
They're
they can be
really bad.
really bad.
But you have a coach who knows how to coach in Europe.
Yes,
So that's something to be said. And look, Villa has slid under the radar this whole competition. They didn't have to go through the playoff.
no, they
They
did
didn't
not.
have to, and they got a good draw playing. Who they play? I don't remember they
Oh,
played.
Bruges.
Bruges, yeah, playing
Bruges, and
Bruges.
my old friend Simon Mignolet.
Right.
Yeah,
So, that's what they went through. So they probably like, oh, we got Bruges, we can beat them. Bruges plays in Belgium. I mean, they can't knock around with us. And now you're looking at Villa going, could Villa beat PSG? Yeah. Could Villa lose to PSG on aggregate 6-1? Yeah.
yeah.
So, that'll be something to definitely kind of like tickle your fancy a little bit. And as far as Arsenal's concerned, I mean, I stopped paying attention. I mean, it was so funny after PSV looked like a team that shouldn't have been in the Conference League, and but you're looking at this going, okay, the ticket prices for the home game against PSV were less than the Premier League games for the like. The people were like, I'm like, why? What's the point? I got to work tomorrow. I don't really need to go see this because it's not going to be, Arsenal's not going to lay it out. Why? Just play and make sure nobody gets hurt and just get through the game. You 7-1. Just don't worry about it. And so I think all of us Arsenal fans are paying closer attention to the game that happened yesterday and hoping, or was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Hoping that, look, it's unfortunate that Arsenal, no matter what they do, we're going to have to play a Spanish team in the quarterfinal.
Hmm.
That was unfortunate because you know how we play against Spain. But if you had to pick, who would not pick Atletico over Real
Yeah,
Madrid?
because in some way, what Atletico does and what you do kind of cancel each other out.
Exactly. So you got a
Whereas
legit
Real
shot.
Madrid, look, I mean, this is regardless of their form domestically, as long as they are in this tournament, they're to be feared.
They're going to be one of the favorites as long as they're in this tournament.
Yeah.
They're going to be one of the favorites. They're going to be
And
one of the top
also,
three.
too, I don't know if you watched that match yesterday, which, by the way,
No, it's so funny. I had a kid in my class because like middle school goes pretty late, and hopefully nobody from my school watches this show because he is the last period of the day, and he had it streaming on his computer, and so he was supposed to be doing math, and I walked behind him, and I was like, "Man, what are you doing?" And he looked at me real quick, and he was about to close his computer, and I was like, "Hold on, just hold on, go sit
I
over
was
there." I
I
sat him in
always
the corner.
remind you, talk about guys that anybody could have, a guy who anybody could have picked up. Why the hell didn't any other Premier League team, when he was available on a free, be like Antonio Rudiger, help us?
Yeah, yeah.
He
I think
bailed
he
them
wanted to go to
out.
Madrid
And
really
he
bad.
had the
Yeah,
second half of second halves.
yeah, yeah. But I snuck and I watched a bit of that game. But I'll never agree with that style where you steal a goal and you lock in. I will never agree with that style. You weren't winning. You weren't winning. And yes, Jan Oblak is an amazing goalkeeper, but you don't play for a shootout against a team that has all of the juju on its side when it comes to this competition. You have to beat them. And that's where I feel like but that's what Atletico does. I know that's what they do.
That's their DNA.
But man, I'm just like, when they scored in the first minute, you're like, okay, well, they're gonna build a fence and just try to hold it as much as possible. And I don't want to say I'm happy when teams that do that lose, but I I feel like it's so rarely successful against a team that's a juggernaut. I feel like it just
I
doesn't
don't
work
know
as
how
well.
successful it ever is. I mean,
Yeah,
if we had Coach G on here, I'm sure he could tell you nightmare stories about watching very good Italy teams do
right.
exactly
Do
that
exactly
and then
that.
lose to like South Korea
Right.
because
Well, speaking of Italy, let's go back to the 94 World Cup when they were down against Nigeria and Bora made them play defensive and they lost. And the Nigerian players said to the end, he took us out of our game. We could have won that game 3-0. And he is exactly right. They could have won that game 3-0. And they played defensive and they lost 2-1. And that's not the way they play. And so there's just something to be said about that style. But look, the only positive thing that we know is that we're getting healthy. We're getting a lot of players back at that time. So as long as no one else goes lame, we should have our best squad available for that game. So let's just hope that nothing catastrophic happens between now and then. I don't think there's any need to really press too hard in the Premier League. The season's basically over. Just make sure you stay in the top four. That's
Hmm.
all you got to do. Just stay in the top four because, if you ask most Arsenal fans, we were happy to finish second after having so many poor seasons. This season, if we didn't win, we're just like, let's just stay in the top four then. Just stay in the top four so you can get into the Champions League next year.
Is the first leg at the Emirates or the second leg? Ah,
Yeah. I'm for those of you who see Matt right now, I'm just nodding my I was nodding my head. Yes.
uh,
It's not I had the same reaction. I went, oh, here we go. Here we go. So, stranger things have happened. Look, you know, I still remember when a school I worked at took a class trip over to Spain, and they got tickets to the Ajax Real Madrid game at the Bernabeu when Ajax beat them. There was a bunch of knucklehead kids who didn't even like soccer were at that game, and I'm like, that was a historic game, and
yeah.
so stranger things have happened. Strange things rarely happen in favor for Arsenal when it comes to Europe, but I'm going to hold out hope. But you can't say that Arsenal does not have a legitimate chance to win. They have a legit chance to win this game. Put it together. You got a squad. They've been playing together for a while. You have some good, strong kids who are going to come in there and hopefully not be afraid because what do they have to lose? And, throw caution to the wind. You never know. You never know. You could easily, get Vinny angry. Let him get a yellow card. Something. Something. I personally think they need to get Jude Bellingham out. If you can control Jude Bellingham, then you can win the game. If Jude
Yeah.
Bellingham is Jude Bellingham, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're gonna do. I think Jude Bellingham is. I think he's the best player in the world, and so we'll go from there. And then so the other two matches are of course Bayern Inter, which is I don't know. I haven't really paid attention to too many of those teams this year. If you want to touch on
I
them, feel free. But I can honestly say I haven't seen a minute of Inter football this year.
Okay, so there I had them, I think the last time we spoke, as one of the favorites. And I stick by that. They're well organized. They they have a weird group of talent and a weird mix of young, really exciting talent and like redemption stories. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I like Mkhitaryan. Maybe it's because I remember him. Geez, I remember him playing for Shakhtar Donetsk in
Right.
Ukraine. I think other than Villa PSG, this is the other fascinating draw
Okay.
because I think Inter are one of those favorites.
Mm-hmm.
The longer Bayern Munich has life, the more dangerous they become
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because this isn't as good as that team, that treble winning team of a couple
Mm-hmm.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But there's enough of guys from that team
Mm-hmm.
still in the squad.
Yeah.
They been there, done
Right.
that.
And Harry Kane is still very good.
I was even going to bring up somebody else. Michael Olise's really got it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
he's
he is very good as
only
well.
going to get better.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's not it. They don't have to rely upon the likes of Mueller, Gnabry,
Mm-hmm.
Coman as much anymore. And
Right.
Leon Goretzka, much to my surprise, has had a resurgence. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't. If I was a betting man, I'd go with Inter, but I don't rule Bayern out of this.
Yeah. For some reason, my gut's telling me Bayern. But yeah, but as I said, I'm not very familiar with. I have not paid attention much to Italy at all beyond AC Milan. So it's been that's my own fault. But I do want to talk about Dortmund Barcelona, and I
Yeah,
really only want to talk about one thing. I'm sorry, Yamin Lamal is unbelievable. He's unbelievable. I mean, the game he had against Benfica. I mean, you're looking at it going, and this is one of the few times where I'm looking at somebody display this type of talent at this young of age who looks like he's 17.
yeah,
Normally they
yeah.
look like that kid's only say looks like he's 24. No, he's got braces and he's got a zit face and he's just kind of he looks like a kid.
He's a kid.
He's a kid. And you see him play, it is it is I can honestly say I have never seen anything like this before in my life. I've never seen anything like this before. At 17, the
Yeah,
closest thing
because
the
even Messi, we knew how good he was gonna be,
right,
but
but
he
look,
hadn't really hit.
right. Even in that I think it was the '06 final when he was on that Barcelona squad, but that was Ronaldinho and Samuel Eto'o's team.
Yup,
He was the what? I think he was 19.
19.
Right. And so he wasn't a starter. And everyone knew that he was going to be the greatest thing that they've ever seen, but he wasn't like look at what he's doing. I mean, you have to don't forget he started every game for Spain. For
In the Euros.
Spain. And
Yeah.
they went undefeated in the Euros. Then he's starting for Barcelona, and look, he had an unbelievable assist to Rafinha with his outs, used the outside of his left foot and flipped that ball to him, and then he scores one of the. I mean, it wasn't a screamer; it was just a placement touch ball, but he's running away from the goal and plants and is able to hook that ball into the far post. I mean, I put my head back and just went, what am I looking at here? What am I looking at here? And you hope that because of he doesn't seem to, you get some of the young kids out there and they play a little too hard. They leave a little too much out there, and he's not doing that. He's just flowing with the game and he's just enjoying himself. And you're just like, we may be seeing literally the heir apparent.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's got multiple Ballon d'Ors written all over him, and I don't think there's really anybody who denies that he doesn't have that potential immediately. Like I'm talking like a Ballon d'Or candidate by the time he's 19. I don't know what you're watching because you're not watching the games I'm watching. This guy is unreal. And he does not, it's almost like he prefers the big moment.
Hmm.
He prefers it. Get that kid in the final and see what he looks like. Because
I I
whoa.
I agree with that. And there's another you already mentioned him. There's another, and this is a total credit to Hansi Flick, by the way. Yo, I was wrong about Rafinha. We were
Yeah.
all wrong.
All wrong.
Because the guy I saw at Leeds, I was like, he's just lanky Adama Traore.
Mm-hmm.
Really fast. He can do all of the really good things to get you in a position to score, but he
Mm-hmm.
has no end product.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now Rafinha is looking like he's going to be the favorite for the Ballon d'Or.
I was gonna say he as clinical can be,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know whether it's the presence of Yamal on the other side that's
Mm-hmm.
helped him. Because you wouldn't think a high pressing system would help a guy become more clinical when it, the issues were always he's like his brain would glitch, but like he's the improvement I've seen from him in just 6 or 7 months has been nothing short of remarkable. Because I
Agreed.
had written him off as like a bust, like for dead,
Yeah. Yeah. But
effectively.
but he scored in 10 straight Champions League games and he's sitting on 25. Like he's having a season to and it's good to that it's happening. It needed to happen now because he's 28.
Yeah,
And you get to 30 and you're still kind of in that area. It won't happen for you. It rarely ever happens for anyone in that situation. So yeah, I did not see Barcelona being really much of a threat in the end. And now I'm completely changing my tune. I'm like, if they can just keep getting the ball wide, every team has a huge, huge, huge problem. And
yes.
this is going to be very fun to watch. So I think in conclusion of this, I can say that you could, and I'll let you finish wrap this up, but the this quarterfinal of Champions League is going to be very, very fun to watch because while we all think we know what's going to happen, if the opposite happens, no one will be surprised. And that's what's going to be really fun to see.
Yeah, there's no even dare I say Dortmund. Remember, they were in the final last year.
Yes, they
And
were. Yeah.
Kovac, say what you will about him, he's way more equipped than Sirhan. Like that was a mistake of a hire, and the quarter setup, nice, and the semis. We're almost guaranteed two pretty good semis,
Yeah,
one way or another.
one way or another. Yeah, yeah. So if you haven't been watching too much Champions League, it's so hard for me to watch because my school day ends so late. But this is the time to really make sure you're starting to tune in because this is going to be very enjoyable. And what I'm most excited about is the final comes after my school year is over. So I am going to I'm going to tell my wife, like, just so you know, this Saturday I'm leaving the house at about 8:30 in the morning and I'll be home at 5. And my beautiful wife is going to kiss me on the forehead and say, have fun, baby. Just for the last about 15 minutes or so, we can talk about um, the Europa League and the Conference League. Let's start with the Conference League, though. The reason I want to start with the Conference League is because I know this has a bunch of teams that you really, 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 really know a lot about, and
Poland lives, man. Poland
yeah,
lives.
but also though, I mean, I hated on this competition until the very first one happened.
Same,
And my tone completely changed on
same.
it. It completely changed. I love this competition. And, you know, seeing teams get a chance to celebrate in Europe is just a wonderful thing to watch. You wouldn't expect a club like Roma to be as happy as they were. But then you think about Roma. Well, Roma hasn't really won a league title or anything like that in a very long time. And they were ecstatic. And then to see West Ham win that trophy. That was great to see. And so and then you're looking at the teams who are in the lead. And unfortunately, like I wish Chelsea wasn't there. you know, I wish they weren't there because like if Chelsea won this, no one would be surprised if they won this. And they don't deserve a trophy this year. They just don't deserve one. But go ahead and jump in. But yeah, I can't even pronounce the names of these teams, but I want to watch. I want to know who's I want to know what's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
so there's this is crazy, but this is why this tournament's so cool
Mhm.
because it was created sort of on the heels of the whole European Super League thing, and then we got a sense of what the Champions League was going to look like. This is the place for those smaller clubs who aren't bad, but are, just
Yeah.
fifth,
Financially,
sixth
they
in
just
the
can't
league.
compete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or clubs from countries and leagues where, look, they're behind the eight ball in a very real way
Hmm.
to genuinely have success.
Hmm.
Roma winning 3 years ago was cool. West Ham winning was cool.
Yeah.
Olympiacos last year
That was
was really
that
cool.
was really
That's
cool.
where I was like, all of these smaller European countries, and I know my bread and butter is Eastern Europe, but I guess Greece is kind of Southeastern Europe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
I I,
they
I
didn't go. They didn't go to the other side in the Cold War, so we don't think of them as East.
exactly. But
Uh,
I can't support Olympiacos because I spent a little bit of time in Greece and a
you're
good
an
guy.
AEK.
I'm an AEK guy.
Hell yeah, same. But nevertheless, the notion that a team from Greece can get
Mhm.
European silverware. These kind of stories died. It's funny I invoked the Cold War after about the 1980s, right? Because if you think back to the 80s, Steaua Bucharest, Red Star Belgrade,
Right.
they won European silverware. With
Mm.
the creation of the modern Champions League, these kind of clubs were shut out.
Hmm.
Conference League is that avenue that
Hmm.
allows these teams to do that.
Hmm.
And I'm wouldn't that be something? Chelsea Mike would be all messed up. There are two teams from the freaking Polish league in the quarterfinals. I can't remember the last time a Polish club was in any European quarterfinal because I'll
Yeah.
be real, the Polish league isn't good. It's not good. Like you want to pay attention to Lech Poznan because that's where all the good young Polish players go before they go someplace else.
Hmm.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
Like Liga of Warszawa and Bialystok, which is the city of the region where my family's from,
Hmm.
they're in the quarterfinal
Yeah.
of a European competition.
Right. Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it's also, it's also good though for, I mean, in England, it's not because it was West Ham, it meant a bit more. But the fact that England is getting more and more and more clubs with money, seeing a team like Chelsea in this competition isn't going to be that surprising. Seeing a team like Manchester United or Arsenal in this competition, because where they end up falling in the league table, is not going to be that surprising. So unfortunately, I think for the types of teams this competition was built for, English teams can kind of ruin the party a little bit. But I will say though, like Fiorentina is in the quarterfinals.
Yes.
That's really cool.
And
That's really cool.
and I will
Florence is a great city as well.
I will hit back at there slightly with the England thing 'cause I understand why you say that, but I will remind you who was in this competition from England last year and they screwed up.
I don't remember.
Your North London rivals.
Oh, Spurs. Yeah,
So
that's
like
right.
you could everyone
It's
was
true.
like, "Oh, Spurs are going to win this." No,
Yeah.
they're not. Like,
Well,
and look, part of that's a Spurs thing.
that's, that's,
But part of it is a lot of these bigger teams. Think about the way they approach it. Even
hmm
Chelsea Mike, when I was on with him for the Eastern Europe report, was like, "I don't think this is straightforward at all."
hmm Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a way, once you get into the knockouts of this tournament, it harkens back to some of my issues with the new Champions League format. Yo, you have to go to Eastern Europe and play them
Right.
with the legs.
Right.
That's not that easy.
Yeah, it's a very good point. That's a very good point. I think for me, it feels differently because Chelsea is a two-time Champions League winner. Spurs had one magical run where they final. Outside of that, they've made a couple of quarterfinals, and that's been about it. So it's a bit different. But when you see Chelsea in there, I don't know. I feel like it's just, I don't want to say it cheapens the pot a little bit, but it does make me, well, you know what it does? It makes me pay attention more because I hope they get knocked out.
Yeah,
It does. I would love for them to, lose this game against a Polish side. I mean, that would be sweet. That would just be fantastic, especially if they lost 1-0 on aggregate because Cole Palmer couldn't find the back of the net anymore because he's been struggling a bit lately. That would be great to
well,
see.
and we forget who is Chelsea's goalkeeper.
Well, it's not Kepa anymore. Who is it?
No, it's not what's it Sanchez anymore either. It's fill in the blank, whatever guy is good in practice that week. So like
Oh, that's right because they don't
England,
have any consistent.
the
I haven't
England
paid attention.
team that gets to this tournament, regardless of the money, let's take the brand name off.
Hmm.
They're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason.
They're there
They're
for
there
a
for a
reason.
reason. You're right. You're right. They're there for a
They're for
reason.
a reason.
Well, I encourage everyone to jump in on this and check out as much as you can. I know there's a lot of midweek European football, but try to see what you can. And these games are also on Thursday, so you're competing with Europa League.
Yeah.
But you're not competing with Europa League if you live in these parts of the world. I'll tell you that because y'all know what you're doing. You're watching your club play, and that's what I think is fantastic about this. And because of this too, it's going to force Western biased sports fans like myself to actually go, I can't even pronounce that name. Where are they from? Type it into my computer. Boom. And then you see, oh, they're in this country. Oh, they play in this league. Well, who else is in this league? Boom. Oh, who's won the championship the past 5 years? Boom. So now you are learning and you're doing research on these leagues and you're generating interest. So now when that game pops up on your feed as something that you might want to know the results of, you're going to click on it more. And that's what I think is the best thing about this is that it takes away people's like I just going to watch this, and all of a sudden you're in a little bit of a rabbit hole because the information is there, and you can just look at it, which is going to lead you to find the Eastern European football reports by Professor Matt and Chelsea Mike, which you all should tune into to listen to. So
Awesome plugs then.
I'm getting pretty good at this. I've been doing this for a little while now. Let's go ahead and switch over to Europa League, where um, uh, this one, I think this is wide open.
Yeah,
Wide open. Because look, the England teams, Spurs, Manchester United, they can lose to anybody, even when they play well, because they seem to just be a little bit. I mean, Spurs especially, the fact that their manager, which we've discussed already, can't seem to get out of his own way in a lot of games, it really limits my faith in them, especially when they're playing Eintracht Frankfurt, who is they'll knock you out easily.
yeah,
And if they, or you're playing against possibly Lazio, who, hey, they can beat you as well if they get through the quarterfinals as well. So we have, and then anytime you see a team from Scotland, even if you hate them, it's pretty cool that they're there. Rangers are still alive. It's pretty cool that they're there. So even if it is Rangers and we're all supposed to hate Rangers, it's pretty cool that you're seeing these small countries that have very limited outreach and have a very, very top heavy league, just to see somebody to get out there and actually have to play some legit games beyond the three you have to play annually in your league against your biggest rival.
Frankfurt. If I'm a United fan or a Spurs fan, Frankfurt is like that's who I don't want to see in the
Absolutely. The team
because
that no one wants to play.
even though they lost Marmouche, they are they're a team that has an identity. And what they did, what a medium-sized club when they lose a superstar should do.
Mm-hmm.
They went out and it's like, okay, we lost our striker. We're gonna buy three of them,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna cover ourselves. And I'll keep it real because I know the two of us, when we're not watching the EPL or I'm not watching like the Ukrainian league or something, we turn into the Bundesliga because it's just freaking fun.
It's fun.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
it's fun.
Uh, Chelsea reject Michay Batshuayi. Yo, he's like he looks like a functioning football player there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're gonna be a tough out. As much as I hate to admit it, because I hate them, Lazio Lazio seem to be able to navigate this tournament.
Mm-hmm. 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 So I think Leon's gonna beat Manchester United.
I
I see Leon knocking
yeah,
them out.
I mean I'm shocked how dominant they were in this last stage.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and look, United looked well against a Sociedad team that was ripped apart. And
Right.
look,
Which you mentioned earlier.
if we
Yeah.
gotten Zubamendi in the summer, would they even been there?
Right.
And Arsene Zakarian, who's a pretty good player, couldn't get on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it was one of those because this is what, hey, I wanted him at Liverpool, a couple seasons ago, well, 5 years ago now. But I said at the time, there's aspects of his game he has to clear up, but he's very talented.
Mm-hmm.
This is the tonic that United fans will come at us next year and be like, Bruno's a good player, and I'm like, but there were two penalties, and yeah, like there's context here. He's good,
Yeah.
but he's still the problems I saw 5 years ago, I still see in his game.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
Like he's not developed, and he's just getting older. Uh, but I don't know. I mean, well, I'm preaching to the choir here. You experienced this last week. United are a funny old team
Yeah.
because when they play crap, they play like crap. They go
Mm-hmm.
right down to that level.
They do.
Whatever reason, they raise their level against better teams.
They do. And I will dismiss a little bit of that because for some reason Arsenal gets completely psyched out when they have like I don't understand why Arsenal play Manchester City so much better than they play Manchester United. And it's been happening like this for years, and I don't know why. There's
Well,
something about
I said it in my last Liverpool specific video, and I'll say it again. I am so glad we don't have to play them again this year
hmm
at Old Trafford. At
hmm
Anfield, we're fine.
right.
We were always fine. And when they were winning stuff, we'd be that loss.
hmm
When we go to that increasingly dilapidated structure,
Yeah.
ghosts from the past get into our brain.
Yep.
We play the occasion, not the club.
hmm
Maybe that might also be part of it for
hmm
Arsenal.
hmm Yeah, that's it for Arsenal. That's it.
You're
Look,
thinking that it's
I
1998.
was gonna say,
Yeah,
ghosts of the '90s seem to attack, and there's kids who weren't even alive then, and for some reason they get caught up in that moment. And I don't want to say I don't understand why, because I'm not one of them and I don't live in their shoes. But I know personally, when we play at Manchester United, I'm nervous. Is all get out.
yeah.
All I mean, it doesn't matter how bad they look. It doesn't matter who's injured. It doesn't matter who's decimated or who. It doesn't matter. I've seen too many times where we were the better team and we've gone in there and either lost or dropped points, and it's just so on
So,
that point.
so I will give Manchester United a puncher's chance here,
Yeah,
but Leon have looked really good,
they
and
have looked good.
I don't watch much French football
Yeah.
at all, but I am old enough to remember before a oil state bought a club in the nation's capital that French football, yep, French football is the heartland of it is southern France.
Mm-hmm.
And Lyon, before then it was Marseille,
Mm-hmm.
was the flag bearers of that. So like
Mm-hmm.
watching them because remember they almost got relegated last year. Like
That's right.
things
Yeah,
have
that's true.
not
Yeah.
been great for them.
Right.
Seeing them potentially, win something would be cool.
Would be
Because
cool.
again, you threw up. I remember that. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember the core of players
Mm-hmm.
and got picked apart by everybody
Right.
that was
Right.
there. Like,
Yeah. But since then, they've still put out quality talent that gets picked year after year after year. So whatever they're cooking over there must taste really good because they've been able and again, you can't you can't put much on where they finish outside of the top anymore because of what PSG's been able to do
mm,
because of the rehaul of their organization. But that's a good club. It's a well-run club. And so you have to give them all the respect whenever you play them, especially if you have to go there. So, because those fans there love that club, and it's a great place to play, I'm sure. Because or else this thing wouldn't keep happening.
well, it up until the PSG project, northern France. When you think France, it's divided geographically. The
Absolutely.
north is rugby country.
Right.
Football was played in the south.
Right.
Uh,
Marseille
yeah,
was yeah, that was the team. That was the team for a very long time, and I believe they have a European trophy as well.
they do.
So
Saint Etienne, another
yeah,
southern club.
Saint Etienne was the best team historically.
Yeah,
So yeah, so well, it'll be interesting to watch. Well, we should reconvene maybe after. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. We'll see what kind of happens over the next week before we record another
next couple
episode.
weeks,
Yeah,
sometime in April.
yeah. So sometime in April, let's do that. So I was planning on doing for us to do about an hour and 15, and we're on almost 2 hours, which seems to happen whenever me and
This
you
is what
get on a
happened.
show. But
Uh,
any parting shots, my friend?
no, just a look out for the Liverpool report. And I'll probably, regardless of what happens, uh, in the cup, put one out next week.
Okay.
The decolonization series
Mm-hmm.
finally kicked off,
Yes, it has.
and I'll be
It's up and
putting
it's live and ready
one
to go.
one one a month, and starting in the summer. I know the France Algeria episode that I want you
Yeah.
in,
Yes.
and Cam is going to join me probably at the end of the season for another Liverpool Celtic mashup.
Cool.
We'll try to stay sober, uh, and yeah, and we were thinking about something cool like a season review,
Yep.
kind of a summer wish list, and
Yep.
because there's no international football this summer,
No.
also maybe do like not the best starting 11, but
Hmm.
your own particular favorite starting
Yeah,
11
that's a good idea. I like
would
that.
be interesting. So,
Right. 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 Right.
yeah, so there's going to be stuff going up around the pipeline.
Sounds good. Yeah. 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 I'm my tutoring schedule is about to end, so that's good. So I'll be definitely trying to turn out some more content myself. So but yeah, Matt, this was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. And so for Professor Matt Umstead, and this is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. And one quick shout out, G. Hope you're feeling better soon, brother. We're all thinking
Oh
about you and
yeah.
praying for you. So again, if you got to this point in the episode, hopefully you're on the mend and you can get back with us real soon. So for everybody and for G, this is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. We hope you enjoyed it. And to quote our dear friend Mike, we did all right this week. Hopefully we'll do better next time. Good night, everybody.